In this episode of today, we're going to talk about marriage, which is closely associated with the discussion we had last week on the Trinity. And I was going to talk about the Trinity some more, but I trashed that idea and said, no, we need to go a little bit deeper in this because I think it's a little more applicable to our lives. So let's jump into this. What can we learn about our identity as men and women reflecting the image of God? Let's give it a go. Okay, last week we talked a little bit about the Trinity, and we saw the Trinity, quite frankly, in the creation of man, and man being male and female. And that was just a discussion that we didn't need to leave as quickly as we did. So we're going to see, do we see how we need each other? God is a community of persons. You can't have God if you just have Jesus. You can't have God if you just have the Father or the Holy Spirit. The three come as a package deal. And do we see that in humanity, male and female come together as a package deal? So, in preparation, if we are made in God's image, what should my relationships look like? What does His relationships look like? How is it that God can get along for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and we seem to can't make it through a lifetime sometimes? Okay? If God is never alone, then should we ever feel alone? And I know a lot of people, even in marriage, they feel alone. What's going on? And if he is always involved with someone, should I not always be involved in someone? Now, I'm not saying that retreat time, being alone, isn't necessary. It is. But I'm also saying that retreat time, as we are alone, is not to be meant to be done in isolation of my relationship with God or my relationship with others, without prayer, just me focused on myself. I just don't know that that's healthy. And then three, what's God up to? What is He creating? What is He working about in me? Why has He created me to need people? Okay. Well, first we probably ought to check that premise and to see if it's even true. Then the Lord God said, it's not good for man to be alone. I will make him a helper suitable for him. Now we need to ask the question, what is the question this text is giving us? Because if we have the wrong question, we're going to come up with the wrong answer. And the question seems to be, what is not good? And what did God do about it? That question seems to be a pretty good question, because what was not good was that man was alone. And what did God do about it? He made him a helper. Adam was not good alone. He needed Eve. And so the answer to the question is, man should not be alone. So God made him a suitable helper, which is found in a woman. Adam needed Eve. Now, as we go to interpretation, we got to take this question and answer and turn it into a spiritual principle, which seems to be being alone is not good. Man and woman were made for each other. Okay, man and woman were made for each other. Now, does this spiritual principle reflect an accurate understanding of the text? Yeah. Does it answer the question that we raised by the text? Yeah. Does it actually describe the dynamics of what's going on? I believe so. So let's move on to application and ask ourselves some questions, because we want to consider this text in the light of our life. Do men and women operate better without each other rather than with each other? Now, the text seems to describe, well, no, they need each other. They don't operate better alone. They operate better together. So the question happens, it can be asked, what happens when a married man or a woman prefers to be alone and divorced? What happened there? Something horrible fell apart. God said that's not good. And yet sometimes, well, there are worse things than being alone. There really is. Okay? So what happened that created a situation and made it worse than it was when they had each other. 3, what happens when we, quote, don't need, unquote, someone to be a part of our group? What happens when we write people off? What happens to our soul, our heart, when we're able to look at someone and say, you're not necessary, I don't need you? What do we do? I mean, that's what's happening inside of us. Is inclusion becoming exclusive? You know, we live in a political environment where everybody has to be inclusive, but we are so divided on our inclusivity. Our inclusivity has become exclusive to particular groups, and some people are inclusive and other people aren't inclusive. We live in a divided government, a divided country. Well, what's going on with that? If God's relationships have worked for thousands of years, well, why not ours? And that's a good question. We're missing the created order. We were created to reflect the unity of God, yet we can't seem to pull it off. What's going on there? We were made for each other. We need to ask these questions. 6, why does everyone want world peace, but no one knows how to pull it off? Everybody wants world peace. Everybody wants world peace. I don't know if anybody that says, oh yeah, no, I prefer Armageddon. Bring it on. No. So if everybody pretty much universally wants world peace, except for the few crazies out there, why haven't we been able to figure out how to pull it off? It's an important question to ask. The next one is, what if we need each other? Good question. What potential could be unlocked if we actually realized that I don't want to do it my way? I do need a community to belong to. And then lastly, who do I need? And how do they need me? This is a symbiotic relationship. We help each other out. Now, these questions are just meant to prime the pump and get you started in asking these application questions. Relationship is sacred. It's something that God had before we even existed, and He created us to reflect that image that He has. Relationship is sacred. Seems like everything in our world is fighting the sacred. And so I want you to think about this for a while, and how possibly returning back to God is the key to returning back to one another. Hope you enjoy those thoughts and conversations you have with the person you're doing this with. God bless, and we'll talk to you later.